The European leaders have gathered here for a special summit to sign off on the deal that will see the United Kingdom leave the European Union, and they have already endorsed it. We've had a tweet in the last few minutes from the European Council President Donald Tusk, and he said that after months of intense negotiations, the two sides have reached agreement on two separate texts, a legally binding withdrawal agreement and the political declaration, which sets out, of course, what the relationship between the UK and the EU might look like after Brexit. The last-minute hitch over the future status of Gibraltar was overcome yesterday. Theresa May, who arrived at the summit just a few moments ago, actually, she's still, of course, needing to win that vote on the deal in the UK Parliament, and that is looking quite tricky. She's written an open letter in the newspapers today to the British people, urging support for her Brexit plan. We'll be bringing you all the latest here from Brussels, examining the deal and what it might mean for the UK and, of course, for Europe. The Prime Minister in the building. We expect that she will get about 90 minutes with the European leaders this afternoon, where they'll talk about process and what comes next, and presumably we're going to talk about the difficulties she might have in Westminster with the deal. So let's bring in our political editor, Laura KUENSSBERG, who's joined me here. Wow, that was quick, wasn't it?
It's done. 18 months of argument, 18 months of us all coming here, fighting about what was going to be on the table, what was not going to be on the table, who was going to be a winner, who was going to be a loser. It was really interesting this morning as well, the European leaders arriving. I felt they'd all read the same script, which says no one's happy, but this is a decent deal, and also this is the only one on the table. That was made loud and clear.
That was made painfully clear by Jean-Claude Juncker, who said we're not reopening this.
And Mark Rutte, the Dutch leader, and Emmanuel Macron, the French president, one after the other. They were all asked what happens if MPs at home vote it down. This is the deal. This is what's on the table.
But they're painfully aware of how difficult it's going to be.
Absolutely, and I think that's exactly why they were at pains to say, this is it. But by strange coincidence of timing, if the vote fails, and let's see, it's still possible that it might get through, the next European summit is scheduled for the day after when we think the meaningful vote is going to be in the British Parliament. So imagine that. The next time we all might be here will be the day after it's either gone through the Houses of Parliament, in which case you'll be able to hear the sighs of relief from Brussels, or it's been rejected by Parliament, and then Theresa May will be here asking for, frankly, who knows what, some kind of lifeline.
And today we got the start of a 2-week public relations exercise.
Oh yeah, yes,
This open letter in the newspapers to the public going above the heads of her fractious MPs. Do you think that's working?
I think it's really hard to tell yet. I mean, we know consistently, and her supporters always say, look, Theresa May polls better than people expect. People have grudging respect for her. Many members of the public think, look, she's kept going. She's carried on in the face of all of these warring colleagues, all of these people resigning, going off in a huff, all these people who are out to get her. I think it's simply too early to tell. But you're absolutely right. We are at the beginning of what is a very planned, very scripted number 10 operation to persuade the nation that this is something that is imperative, that there is no other real option. This is the deal. And also somehow MPs are being irresponsible or childish, or they're out for themselves if they don't allow it to go through. That's very much the tone of what we're going to see, and I think it's going to be pretty bumpy, and I think at times it might feel, almost like we've joked about it a bit, but I think it's right. It's a kind of X-rated version of Project Fear. It's going to be this or Armageddon. That's the way that Number 10 think they can get this through.
What do you make of what we're reading in the newspapers this morning, that we've got these groups within the cabinet that are now forming? You've got the Remainer group, you've got the Michael Gove Brexiteer group. Are we reading too much into that, or is it real for her?
For a long time, it has been absolutely the case that there are different groups in the cabinet, no question about that. There is a group of sort of purist Brexiteers who are very unhappy about elements of the deal, but they've decided to stay on. Then you have maybe sort of, latter day Brexiteers, people who are like Jeremy Hunt, for example, who was a Remainer but is now trying to push for the kind of deal that he thinks could get through Parliament. And then you have former Remainers who are very much in the camp of don't dare open Pandora's box because this is what we have to do. So there are multiple factions inside the cabinet, far more complex than Brexiteers versus Remainers somehow. And of course, if the deal were to fall, that would put forward some very difficult decisions for different groups of ministers, and particularly at the ministers of state, so the level just underneath cabinet. There are ministers who I've spoken to in the last couple of weeks who say at that point they might consider leaving government in order to argue for something else.
So they're all sitting on their hands for now, forming their plans, waiting for the day after the vote?
Well, I think that people who haven't resigned up until this moment have made a decision already, which is to go with this is the best case scenario, to try to push for this, to try to persuade their backbench colleagues that this is the best case scenario. This deal is a decision in and of itself. But of course, there are ministers thinking about what they do if this falls. Of course there are, because right now, if you look at the numbers, it's very, very hard to see how it gets through. But of course, we can't even begin to imagine ourselves into the minds of MPs in 2 weeks' time. We just can't. And I think you cannot underline enough how much things could change in the next fortnight. So to say today, oh, there's no way it's going to get through Parliament, we just can't say that.
No.
We really can't say that, because 2 weeks of debate, of probably very angry argument, of questions, of doubts, of decisions are yet to take place. And it's wrong to imagine we can make a call on that right now. We just simply can't.
Okay. Laura KUENSSBERG, I've got to let you go because you're busy, and there's plenty to talk about. Thank you very much indeed. Well, let's hear what the EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, had to say as he made his way into the building.
I have worked with my team, Sabine, Stephanie, an exceptional team, to reach a deal. That means to organize in an orderly fashion the withdrawal decided by the UK. We have worked thanks to the unity, the full unity of the 27 head of states, the member states, their personal trust, and also as well with the European Parliament. I have worked with my team and negotiate with the UK, never against the UK. And I want also to thank the British team. Now it's time for everybody to take their responsibility. Everybody. I want just to add that this deal is a necessary step to build the trust between UK and EU. We need to build in the next phase this unprecedented and ambitious partnership. We will remain allies, partners and friends.